Okay, so injury-wise, Kaiser's doing well. They checked his hand out again, seems to be healing well, and he's doing well, and I thought he did some really nice things for us on Saturday against Illinois. Ben Klein, still, nursing the shoulder, but he'll be ready for the game. Akil Lynch, he's day-to-days. In the Ohio State game, he sprained his MCL, and he's day-to-day with that. That's why he didn't play in the Illinois game. I'm not sure if I mentioned that last week. I apologize for that. I think everybody else, there's some bumps and bruises. Obviously, Billy Belton carried the ball 36 times, so we're just watching his contact in practice, but he'll be ready for the game. There's some couple of stomach bugs going around. I tell these kids I wake up every day with a stomach bug, but they don't laugh at that. So, but no, I think we're doing okay.
Okay, we'll start with questions. Rich Scarcella and Reading. Rich, go ahead.
Thanks, Jeff. Bill, how would you describe the season to this point?
Well, I think certainly, Rich, obviously we'd like to be 8-0. I think we've played tough. I think we've battled hard. We've competed. It's been a little bit up and down at times. At times we've played well as a team, at times we haven't. And, I think after the season is when we'll really focus on that and see why that was. Right now, it's important for us to level it off and continue to compete and play well. And I think, like I always say, we've had a good practice. Last night, Monday, and we're up to the challenge for Minnesota. Minnesota's an excellent team, and I think that question is a great question, and it's probably something that we have to really analyze after the season.
Bob Flounders in Harrisburg.
Minnesota's running game is fourth in the Big Ten. They have almost 2,000 yards, and it looks like they're really starting to run the ball very well. They have in Nebraska and Indiana. Is there anything you see specifically that they're doing well of late in their run game?
They run the ball very well. They run a power scheme. They run the ball about 75% of the time, and that's what they do. That's what they believe in. Those are the type of players they have. They have two good backs, guys that are good. The quarterback can run the ball, so they have good scheme runs. They're very well coached. This is a very, very good team. It's one of the better teams we've played this year.
Derek Lavars from Wilkes-Barre.
So, how much have you gotten to know Jerry Kill during these last 2 years, and just from watching the film, can you give your thoughts on the job his entire staff has done during a tough situation?
Yeah, no, Jerry, obviously I have a ton of respect for Jerry. Feel bad for what he's had to go through. I called him 2 weeks ago, spoke to him on the phone for a little bit to see how he was doing. I've gotten to know him a little bit, at the Big Ten meetings and things like that. Great guy. Obviously has a fantastic staff that has a lot of cohesion and unity, and you can see the kids feeding off of that. And that you give Jerry and his staff a lot of credit. They've done a great job of coaching these kids and recruiting for the type of football that they want to play. And I can't say enough about Jerry Kill and his staff.
Mark Wogenrich in Allentown.
Bill, how would you evaluate so far the contributions of the run-ons who've been playing, particularly on special teams, and then two local guys for me, Garth Lakitsky, Andrew Tulenga? How are they progressing?
Okay, so the run-ons, I'll tell you, not to get into the specifics of who, but I think when you look across the board, like you said, especially on special teams, these guys are really contributing. I thought on our kickoff team last week, we had a couple guys tackling the returner inside the 20-yard line, and both of those guys were run-on players. I think they've done an excellent job. They practice hard. They're a lot of fun to be around. I really enjoy coaching all these kids, and the run-ons are just a lot of fun to watch them practice and how hard they go and things like that. Garth Lakitsky, I believe, is going to concentrate on wrestling, Mark, so he's no longer with us. And then Andrew Tulenga is a run-on offensive lineman, young guy who's certainly improved from where he was in August to where he is now. Got a long way to go, but I think going against the varsity every day on the Dirty Show really has helped him.
Frank Bodani in York.
Hey, Bill, could you talk just a little bit more about Ryan Kaiser? How important is he to your secondary this year? And also, just in light of dealing with the hand injury, the broken hand, you also just mentioned how he's come back and dealt with that in the play he made to end the game.
he's a very valuable member of this football team, just from the type of kid he is to the type of player he is, the maturity level that he brings to the locker room. You know, he comes from a coaching family. I believe his mom's a coach. You know, athletics has been a part of his life, you know, his whole life. And, you know, I think he does a great job. I think he's an instinctive player. I think he was a little rusty when he first came back from the hand injury. He'd probably be the first one to tell you that, but I think in the Illinois game, he really played a lot better. He made a nice play on a bubble screen, and then he obviously got the tipped interception. And fantastic guy, you know, great guy to coach and team guy, just really, really good guy to have on the team.
Joe Giuliano, Philadelphia.
Yeah, hi, Bill. What did you see in Bill Belton that you thought would make him a good running back? And was there a time when you saw him start to really improve and flourish, develop as a running back over a period of a week or two?
When we first got here, we started having those crack of dawn, early morning workouts. And I remember the way that we had it set up, I think it was the very first morning, was we had a lot of change of direction type drills to really try to, you know, evaluate these guys and see where we would put them. And again, just to remind you, I didn't watch any film really on these guys before I got here, so I was just trying to give everybody a clean slate. And so when I watched Billy, I saw a kid that was, you know, 5'11", you know, maybe 185, 190 pounds, and thick-looking guy. And I said, what position was he? And they said he was a slot receiver and a Wildcat quarterback. I said, well, you know, I think, you know, looking at our running back situation at that time, I said, well, why don't we try him at running back? And that's when we moved him. And, you know, I think remember now, he got injured. He really improved a lot in training camp his first year at running back, and then he had a bad ankle sprain against Ohio and had a hard time coming back from that, and never really hit his stride again last year. And then this year, spring practice, and then really in training camp, I saw this kid really improve, and to the point where he's playing pretty well.
Mike Gross in Lancaster.
Hi, Bill. A little bit I've seen in Minnesota, they have a kid, Rashid Hagman, number 99.
Yeah.
He looks like a pretty amazing player.
Yeah.
300-pound guy with great athleticism and everything. How do you deal with a guy like that? I would imagine he presents kind of unique challenges.
Yeah, you're right, Mike. He's an excellent player. He's one of the better defensive linemen we've gone against. He's explosive. He plays with good pad level. He's quick. Seems to me that he's going to be, has a chance to be a first or second day draft pick. He's a very good player. And so, you know, you have different ways of having to deal with him. You're going to have to double him. You're going to have to, you know, get help from places, you know, where you don't normally get help from, and make sure that you know where he is on every play, and try your best not to have him single blocked all the time, you know, because he's a challenge. He's a good player. They have a lot of good players. They're good.
Donnie Collins in Scranton.
Hi, Bill. If you noticed anything different about Minnesota's team-wise since Tracy Clay took over, and you talked a lot about how resilient your own team is. Do you notice that a little bit from them too, considering some of what they've gone through with Coach Hill and recently?
Yeah, no question. I haven't noticed a lot of scheme change. I've tried to watch just about every game, and you know, I think they do a really good job of playing tight coverage on defense and playing competitive. You know, when I watch them, there aren't any easy plays on either side of the ball. You know, I don't think there's ever. I think they just do a really good job of making sure that their scheme is coached up well. And you're right. They play very, very hard. On defense they run to the ball, and on offense they run the ball downhill, and they challenge you defensively. And so, you know, we're going to have to be up for the challenge. That's for sure.
Dan Gelston, Associated Press.
Not connected.
Chris Adamski in Pittsburgh.
Hey, Bill, I just want to know, not necessarily any of the current players or anything like that per se, but it's just a matter of your overall philosophy, you and your staff and everything. How do you make decisions on redshirting? Is that something that's done before, or throughout, or kind of case-by-case basis, or how the season plays out? And how do you decide when it's best, you know, to redshirt somebody, you know, this year, or for down the road, or for this year, or whatever the case may be?
Ideally, you'd like to redshirt everybody. You know, I think it's very difficult to play as a true freshman when you're trying to figure out your class schedule, and you know, all the different things that go on your freshman year. Now, you know, that's, with the situation that we're in right now, that's really impossible to do. So what we do is, it's more of a case-by-case, position-by-position, you know, like if you look at the offensive line, you know, do we need Andrew Nelson to play for us this year? No, you know, because we have some decent players there that we really believe in, and hopefully we can keep him where he can redshirt and have 4 years to play. You know, as opposed to like Brandon Bell. You know, Brandon Bell is a guy that is a freshman linebacker that, you know, we felt had improved, and we started using him on special teams, had a great tackle on a punt last week, and has played a little bit on defense. So it's really position by position, and then case by case is the young man ready. But ideally, you know, you'd love to have everybody for 5 years, but that's almost impossible to do.
Corey Geiger in Altoona.
Hi, Bill. This is a topical issue in football. Can you address what policies you have in place to prevent hazing and bullying on the team? And how different is that issue in general between the NFL and the college game?
Right, we don't allow any hazing at Penn State. I'd say if anybody gets hazed, it's the coaches. The players bust our chops. But no, seriously, we take that very seriously. That's not something that we you know, we definitely address it right away, and we do not allow it. You know, I think, you know, I'm not sure. Believe me, I'm just trying to get ready for Minnesota. I know in working in New England, you know, we just had a very professional locker room with a lot of great guys in it, great coaching staff, and fantastic ownership. And so things like that, you know, they never happened in New England. And so, you know, I think there's a big difference there between pro and college football. I think college football, it's about getting an education, playing as good a football as you can on the field, and, you know, young guys earning their stripes on the practice field. That's what it's about, not earning their stripes by, you know, getting their head shaved or something. We don't do that at Penn State.
Okay, Brian, at this point, we'll take questions here in the media room. Please raise your hand. We'll bring a microphone to you.
Bill, Minnesota's been kind of dominating time of possession in this winning streak. Does that impact what you do offensively at all?
You have to look at that, Brennan. You got to look at that because, you know, they average almost 5 minutes more than the team, their opponents, and that's a big deal. You can't totally change what you do, but you better make sure that you know, that you're not just playing at warp speed the whole game, because you could play warp speed the whole game. If you score in 1 minute and 50 seconds, that's okay, but your defense has only been on the bench for 1 minute and 50 seconds, so you better make sure you keep scoring, and that's hard to do against Minnesota. They're a good defense, so, you know, we've got to mix tempo and make sure that we give our defense a break and make sure that we try to do the best we can to win the time of possession on our side.
Bill, have you noticed any difference in the way your team has played at home compared to on the road this year?
Yeah, you know, obviously we haven't played as well on the road, Willie. I think, you know, it's hard to pinpoint why. You know, hopefully that changes. You know, I think we've practiced well. I think that we've been prepared for these games on the road, and you know, I know that these guys came out yesterday and practiced really well, and I think we'll string some good practices together and you know, be ready to go on Saturday. So hopefully we can change the tide of you know, not playing well on the road.